I am going to call photographers out. And yes, I am a photographer, but the way we get better is by calling out our mistakes and doing better. Hello, my name is Vonecia. Welcome to my channel Vibe with Vonecia, where I talk all things photography, dance, and lifestyle. So today I wanted to discuss some photographer red flags. Yes, I'm going to be talking about people like me and what you should watch for when dealing with us. So I know that sounds crazy, but early on in my photography career, I did some things that, I kind of regret now. Well, I wouldn't say regret, but some things that, I was just a little naive about. And, I would look at myself now, my younger self now, and be like, wow, like, girl, you was tripping. But yes, I am going to be talking about some red flags because y'all know this red flag trend has been popping on social media. People have been talking about red flags you should watch out for when dealing with relationships, when dealing with clients, when dealing with jobs and things like that. So I am going to call photographers out. And yes, I am a photographer, but the way we get better is by calling out our mistakes and doing better. But I'm not just going to be talking about red flags. I'm going to tell you how you can turn those red flags into green flags. Wow, this shirt is bright. But yes, it's not enough just to point out the negatives. We have to be solutions oriented. All right. So I'm going to tell you 5 things that you should look out for, or 5 red flags you should look out for when dealing with photographers, and things you can say to turn those red flags into green flags. Because at the end of the day, it is all about communication. All right. Sometimes you just gotta let people know what your boundaries are. Let people know that you're serious. And at the end of the day, although there are some people who like to take advantage, we want to, just teach people how to treat us. Exactly. Yeah. We just want to teach people how to treat us. And, if it's someone you really want to work with, you got a little red flag is popping up, it might not be intentional. Just bring it to their attention and, you can turn it into a green flag. So let's get started. So the first photographer red flag I want to discuss is relevant work. So when you're reaching out to a photographer, first make sure that they have relevant work in their portfolio that pertains to your vision, the project or the concept that you want to create. If a photographer is saying that they can do something for you, they should have something in their portfolio that represents that. If a photographer says that yes, they can create something for you, but they have no relevant work in their portfolio that represents that, that red flag should be popping up in your head. But it may not be a red flag all the time. The photographer may just have, that part of their work hidden. Maybe it's not something that, the direction that they're going, or, maybe it's private client work that they may not be able to display on their portfolio. So in this case, you should ask them, hey, I'm looking to do XYZ. Are there any additional samples that you can send me that can show me what you can produce for me? In that case, if they are able to send you something additionally, you can turn that into a green flag. The next thing that you should look out for when dealing with a photographer is whether or not they send you a contract and what's in that contract. Yes, it's not enough to just have a contract. You got to make sure that what's within the contract is mutually beneficial for both you and the photographer. So first of all, if a photographer doesn't insist on sending you a contract, that might be a sign that they aren't experienced enough, or that, they're wishy-washy. They may switch things up. But once you have that contract, it's written, it's set in stone. It's supposed to be an agreement that outlines everything that is expected of the photographer, what you should expect from them, and what they expect from you. So if a photographer does not have a contract, that may also be a red flag. But remember, we are trying to be solutions oriented. All right. So if you still want to work with that photographer, ask them, be like, hey, did you have a contract for this gig or this project that we're working on? May we get this written? So I'll know exactly what to expect. And also within that contract, there's likely, terms about, how many photos will be delivered, how many days it'll take, the copyright, how you're able to use the photos, the style, revisions, no-shows, cancellations, all of that should be in the contract. So if there's something that is missing or something that you have a question or concern about, don't be afraid to ask them. You don't have to accept what the photographer gives you. It is a mutually beneficial thing. You're working together. You're hiring them to bring your vision to life. So at the end of the day, you should be in agreement with the terms that the photographer presents. Yes, the photographer is the professional, and they should have they should come up with a contract that speaks to the work that they can provide. But at the end of the day, you have to sign this too. And once you sign it, it is set in stone. There's no turning back. So please, please, please make sure that you first have a contract from the photographer and that you read it thoroughly and agree with all of the terms that they have. All right, and then it's a go. All right, let's talk about communication. So if a photographer does not communicate often with you throughout the process, that may be a red flag. All right. Communication is the key to understanding all of the facets, all of the moving parts that are involved with the shoot. So first of all, I love to personally pick up the phone and have a consultation with whomever I'm working with, just to make sure that we're in alignment before, sending the contract and agreeing on things. A lot of times it is better to talk things through to get a better understanding of what is expected. But yes, a photographer should communicate with you often until, everything is clear. Often may vary depending on, person to person or project to project. Some projects may need more communication or more touch points than others, but it is important that you feel like you're being heard, that you feel like you are a priority, because again, this is a mutual thing. If you are working with a professional, you should feel like you are being heard. Now, photographers do get pretty busy, especially if they're working alone or independently, but you should hear something back, in my opinion, within 2 to 3 days. But again, that may vary. But yes, make sure that your photographer is communicating clearly with you. Again, that you have everything in writing at the end of the day before you actually, make that deposit or initiate that agreement or initiate the shoot. Yeah. And then it's a go. If they don't ask you any questions, that is a communication red flag right there. A photographer should ask you questions to make sure that they can deliver your vision and that, they're really interested in what you're doing. I love to ask my clients, what is the purpose for what you're doing? How many people are going to be there? What else? What is your timeline? What are you looking forward to? What final product do you want out of this? What day and time, obviously that should be a given, the day and time, but they should ask you questions to make sure that, they, care and that they really are trying to understand whether or not they can deliver upon, your vision or whatever you're asking for. On the other hand, if a photographer is not trying to hear you out, they have a bad attitude or they're cocky, they're coming off as a know-it-all, that's a red flag right there. A photographer, yes, they are an expert, but they should be willing to hear you out. All right. Like I said, at the end of the day, you are hiring them to bring your vision to life. And if they're not listening to your needs, what you want, that's a bad sign. All right. If they're trying to tell you or like solely control the situation, then that may be a red flag. Yes, you should rely on the photographer to put their foot down, to, be decisive, to advise you on what is best for your vision, but it shouldn't be, 100% control for the photographer. And if they disagree with you, they should be honest and open about that. Be like, hey, a photographer should be, humble enough to say, hey, like, I don't think I can deliver this project for you. I don't think that, I am the best one for this project. And that is totally fine. But if they're trying to dictate the whole situation, that may be a red flag. And in that case, you as the client can also tell the photographer like, hey, I was actually, thinking about this. I was hoping to have this, but it doesn't seem, like you are able to, deliver this for me. So I'm going to consider a different route. Or, don't be afraid to ask the photographer, do you know anyone else that, would be able to help me with this? Or, I need time to think, whatever it may be. You don't have to accept, that cockiness, that, bad attitude from the photographer just because they have great work. Yes, quality work is a huge factor in choosing a photographer, but at the end of the day, you want to feel heard. You want to make sure that the message that you want to portray, the feeling, the vibe, whatever it may be, is pleasurable. All right. It should be a pleasant experience. Those are a few of my photographer red flags. Let me know which one resonates with you the most. Which have you experienced down below? And also stay tuned because I will be following up with a video about client red flags. Yes, I'm going to flip the script and talk about things photographers should look out for when they are dealing with clients. Yes, I know this one is a big one, but first I wanted to call us out because we're not perfect either. And we do need to learn and grow from our mistakes. I'm where I am today because I've, turned those red flags into green flags. And like I said, a lot of times it isn't intentional, but you want to make sure that you're looking out for these things because it can, have an effect on the product that you receive. And if it's a very special moment, you definitely don't want to mess that up. You don't want to overlook these red flags. Like if it's a wedding or a birthday or, a special occasion that only happens once, you definitely want to make sure you look out for these photographer red flags. So yes, let me know which one resonates with you the most. What have you experienced? And are there any other red flags that you should look out for when dealing with photographers? Thank you. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you like and subscribe right now for more content like this. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.